Hi everybody, welcome to Cabela's Spring Thunder. I'm Cory Determann, I'm with my partner, Charlie Crider. Today is March 26th and we are in Clinton, Iowa. And just like the rest of the Midwest, we're still socked in with winter. We have not got the warm temperatures, and that is definitely going to have an effect on what our birds are going to do come hunting season. Today we're going to talk about decoy placement, what decoys to use, and our ground blind setup using archery equipment.
We're out here in the field right now, and what we're going to first talk about is setting your blind with the sun at your back. That way when those birds come in front of you and you have your decoy placed at 7 to 10 to 5 yards in front of you, when that bird comes in, he's going to have that sun in his eyes. And also he's going to be more concentrated on that decoy as well.
So with the sun at your back and you completely blacked out in your blind, it's going to be very difficult for that turkey to pick up your movement. And using archery equipment, it's going to be at close ranges, so you need to do what you can to increase your chances and give you the highest probability of being successful in the field. Another thing to remember is you want to blend in with your surroundings. Inside these blinds, it's all dark and black in here. So that's why we black everything. Our face, our hair, our heads, our gloves, everything is all black. That way the turkeys can't see our movement in here. You'd be really surprised what they can pick up. Their vision is very good. So make sure that you black yourself out when you're hunting out of these blinds.
On that note, I had a really hard lesson to learn about 3 or 4 years ago. I had a nice tom come in, and one monster tom came right directly behind him, and I really messed up. I wasn't blacked out, and that bird saw my movement right away, and he took off alarm putting as fast as could be. So that was a hard lesson to learn, but now I always wear black ops, and I black myself out at the best of my ability, and we've had a lot of success with that. You should try it too. Another tip is when we walk out in the field and we place our blind, we don't generally place our blinds right next to a fence or an opening. You can actually have that blind in the middle of a field. Those turkeys, they're not afraid of that blind. For some reason, we've had them within 3 feet looking in the windows. They're just not afraid of it. So don't be afraid to put your blind in the middle of a field, in the middle of a strutting zone even, because those birds aren't going to shy from it. They're going to concentrate on that decoy.
Another tip to remember is when setting up your blind, if you know where those birds are roosting at, you want to try to set yourself up in a place where that wind is blowing. If you have a high wind, those birds are probably going to land going into the wind. So that's another factor to keep in mind when setting up.
We like to put our decoys at about 7 yards. So what we do is we place our decoys first, and then we'll step off 7 yards, and then we'll set our blind. And always with the sun behind our back. That way it gives us ample opportunity to get that bird as close as we can since we're using archery equipment.
Another reason we like the 7-yard range is we don't want those birds too close. For those of us that are shooting compound equipment, using a peep sight, you have if the bird is too close, you're going to have a point of aim and a point of impact difference. And if that bird is right on your blind, if you look at where your sight is compared to where your arrow is resting, there's going to be a drop. So you don't want that bird too close either. And it also gives them another opportunity to look in the blind at close range and pick up something that maybe you forgot. I also want to talk to you a little bit about bird personalities in regards to toms. They do have their own personalities just like deer or people. And when you're setting up a strutting tom, we like to put a submissive hen or a breeding hen in front of it, because when you display that out there, that's a pretty big shot over the bow to those other toms in the field that he's the main bird. So that's going to trigger a response. You may get some birds that are going to shy away from it because they're sub-dominant birds or not dominant birds. But you pick the right bird with the right personality, and it will bring him in close.
Another thing to keep in mind is what type of decoy to use. We've had a really cold winter this year here in Iowa, and it's still hanging on. What we want to keep in mind is, since our season is going to be starting here in a couple weeks, and that cold weather is going to be hanging on, we're probably most likely going to use a dual hen setup or a Jake and a hen setup. That's based on the cold weather that we're having and their breeding times.
The biggest reason that we're going with the 2 hen set or the Jake and hen is because we don't want to be too aggressive right now. as Charlie was saying, this colder weather is probably going to push back the peak of the breeding. So we're not going to want to go out there and be real aggressive and try to go after a bird that's not ready yet. A lot of times you'll get those toms that are going to shy away. Once we get a feel for the toms are really being aggressive, we're going to use our strut and decoy. And we've had encounters in the past where birds have hung up or skirted the decoy just because they weren't ready yet. But what we like to do is we like to actually face the head of that strutting decoy away from the oncoming bird. Now it does serve two purposes. One is that bird, just like with deer and using a buck decoy, they're going to come at that decoy head on if they're going to commit. They want to lock eyes, they want to see that head. The other thing that's going to happen is as you face that decoy towards your blind, that bird will actually spin to face head on with that bird a lot of times. And that if he's strutting and has got his tail fan up, that's going to be a nice barrier for him not to pick up any of your movement in the blind as you're getting ready to draw that bow.
Today we talked about decoy selection, decoy placement, blind placement, weather conditions, sunlight, and wind.
We really hope that these tips will help you in your turkey hunt this season. Here in just a couple weeks we're heading up to Delaware County, heading up to Luke Thompson. He's my brother-in-law, and that'll be our first hunt, and we can't wait to bring it to you. Thanks for watching Cabela's Spring Thunder this week. We really appreciate you guys watching.